Kaiju defeat the Ghostbusters at the box office.
Plus, a Godzilla and Kong movie with more Kong than Zilla.
All this and more in this week's
Back to the movies.
Welcome to Back to the Movies. I'm Robin Oakman.
I'm Andrew. This is my second episode of this show.
We're glad to have you.
Thanks.
All right, let's jump right into the box office. Starting in at number one, we're just coming off of the first weekend with it. Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. It's an empire state, let's say, with our first two entries here.
Yes.
I believe you saw it this weekend, so you'll have some thoughts coming up.
Yeah, I saw it last Friday. It was before I went to my family's party for Easter.
Oh yes. So you can see here, 195 million, already unseated the Ghostbusters, which I think reception has been less than great.
Yeah.
I think what we've found with these MonsterVerse movies is they even though Godzilla x Kong released during COVID, it's still they're able to pull good numbers.
Yes, indeed.
But yeah, so number two, Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire, 109 million. Off of its second weekend. Nothing brilliant. Of course, number three, Dune Part 2.
Yes.
We've talked at length about it. I was quite pleased with it. I am hoping to see it one more time before it leaves theaters.
Yes.
But yeah, 627 million is quite good.
Yes, for a movie like that, yeah.
Number four, Kung Fu Panda 4. Got to have a kids movie in the lineup somewhere. And earlier this year, it was Migration, holding over from the end of December, but now it's Kung Fu Panda 4, and I anticipate that it'll stick around for quite a bit.
All right, so next up, it's Immaculate, another Sydney Sweeney film.
Yes.
I hope it's immaculate.
I'm unsure on the reception, but
Yes.
it's an A24 film, I believe, so it has sort of a limited release, and
Okay.
plus being a horror movie.
Oh, the horror movie? That was a romantic comedy or something.
that was Anyone But You, which is earlier last year.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, 13 million, not too great, but again, those movies tend to have more limited releases. And
Okay.
show less often. But yeah, Godzilla x Kong,
Yes, there's a lot of monkey business going on.
certainly.
Because, like I said in the intro, there was more King Kong than Zilla. I mean, basically, it's Kong's movie with Godzilla in it.
Yeah, I think it's a Batman versus Superman problem.
Yes.
Which Godzilla versus Kong had
Yes.
that a big monster movie mashup, and they fight for a little bit.
Yes.
They're pals.
Same with this movie, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense because Kong is a mammal, so it makes sense to focus on him because he's a mammal. It makes sense to have more facial expressions. Right. Godzilla is more like a bird and lizard. Those kinds of creatures don't have much emotions compared to mammals, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and I think the original King Kong in 1930s, 1933, I believe. Kong is meant to be a sympathetic figure.
Yep.
And I think that's really seen. Whereas Godzilla, which was released in
1954.
Excellent, thank you, 1954. Godzilla is more a force of nature.
Yes.
We're meant to see a bit of ourselves in Kong, whereas Godzilla is meant to be this otherworldly force, on par with a nuclear bomb. I personally prefer Godzilla. I think I've always preferred Godzilla.
Me
when
too.
Godzilla vs. Kong came out in 2021, I was rooting for Godzilla.
Really?
And he won. I just want to make that clear. He
Of
won.
course.
I've always preferred Godzilla. I just think he's cooler.
Okay, me too. I was a big Godzilla fan since I was little. My brother used to watch those before I did. He's like 10 years older than I am. And I'm watching the original DVDs. I even have one of those. This is from 1964. This came out the same year when I was born. I mean, my mom was born. This is one of the original ones.
Yeah, Godzilla vs. Mothra.
Mothra, yep.
That is one that I've seen, actually. My local library had some
Really?
Godzilla DVDs, so I've seen that one. I've seen I think it's one from the 80s. It's got a like anti-pollution message. It's where he
Yes.
fights the slime monster.
Yeah, I think it was from the 90s, but even this one has like an anti-environmental message as well. It comes to how the businessman in the movie is exploiting the giant egg.
Well, we'll talk more about Godzilla later on.
I know you're going through a lot. I wonder if you know that we can get help. Let's see how far we can go. Love, your mind.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Welcome back. We were most recently talking about Godzilla, but
Yep.
it's my chance to talk about what I've been watching. Unfortunately, I didn't get out to see it in its first weekend.
Okay.
But what I have been watching, I attended Anime Detour in Minneapolis just this past weekend,
Okay.
which is where I acquired my prop. It's a sheep. It glows in the dark. It's neat. I like it. It doesn't. It's more of a tangential collection to what I'm discussing today because it's very cutesy. It's got some space associations, which is very similar to Steven Universe.
Okay.
Steven Universe originally aired in 2013 on Cartoon Network, and I initially was not. It didn't really pique my interest. It was sort of past the time. Like I was getting into more stuff that was not on airing on TV at the moment. But yeah, I've been very impressed with it. My older sister watched it. I think while it was still airing, and so I was just getting bits and pieces of what she had seen. And what I was really impressed with, which I've mentioned in previous episodes, is the music is very. It has a lot of chiptune elements. It's inspired by video games, and so that element comes through in the composition like quite a lot. But I think the music is the big draw for a lot of people. But having watched it and actually having like been to the last 2.5 seasons just over this past weekend, I think I'm really impressed with the writing.
Okay.
Like for a Cartoon Network series, I know that I've heard that Adventure Time gets really good in its later seasons. Of course, Star Wars: The Clone Wars premiered on Cartoon Network, but Steven Universe is really, really special. And I think it for a show of that caliber to have this have such rich storytelling, tell a lot of important lessons that I think can resonate with both a younger target audience, but also young adults, and then on into later demographics. But it teaches a lot of important lessons about accepting responsibility, making peace with things that happened in the past. But I think that one of the main complaints that I hear from people is that it is a show where the power of friendship conquers all, which that's something it's a theme in a lot of different media.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily weakness, and emotion and truth and everything plays really importantly. So as well as that, it got 5 seasons, and then Steven Universe the movie was released in 2019,
Okay.
which I watched just last night actually.
Okay.
And it sort of plays like an extension of the series. It feels a lot like a longer Steven Universe episode.
Okay.
Obviously the emphasis on the music, the animation quality is fantastic. The writing and the storytelling is brilliant. Yeah, and I think Steven Universe uses like one of my favorite fictional tropes of all time, which is the idea of the time skip, where time passes and everyone's outfits changes, and then there's been progress and all these sort of things. I like to. It's just something that I like to see.
Okay.
As well as Steven Universe Future, which continued off the movie, sort of playing into the aftermath of that, and that's just one season, and that's the end of it. Moving on.
Okay.
War for the Planet of the Apes released in 2017. I watched the previous 2 in this sort of reboot trilogy.
All right.
Rise, Dawn, and War.
Yeah.
And a lot of my what I liked about it, it just continues. Like Andy Serkis sells the trilogy so well. Like he is able to tell like the journey of Caesar, the central ape character, really well. And it bookends the trilogy, and it's a really great send off.
But it's not a trilogy no longer. Now it's a quadrilogy because I seen the trailer for the new one when I watched the Godzilla Kong movie.
Yes. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Which there's a time jump. Isn't that great? I think it's like 200, 300 years after Caesar.
Really?
So apes conquer the planet. But yeah, like other things about War for the Planet of the Apes. I thought there were a lot of compelling characters, and what was like there is something very like wholesome and sweet in something that in a movie that's very dark and it's very heavy and it's kind of depressing. Other things I liked. Woody Harrelson plays the main villain, who's this. I guess the best way to describe him, he's a fascist religious warmonger.
Really?
Which I don't love that character, but I think Harrelson plays it really well.
Really?
I think Harrelson's had a really excellent career post Cheers, as well as playing a character in Solo: A Star Wars Story. I think the 2 complaints that I had about the previous Rise and Dawn were that there was too much human drama, and I appreciate that it's toned down a lot, which is a major improvement. The trilogy, the last 2, so Dawn and War, were directed by Matt Reeves, who did the Batman, and I think the use of lighting is really excellent. That's something that's very consistent with his filmmaking. But yeah, I think it is a good trilogy.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Yeah, 'cause, like it's a prequel to important sci-fi trilogy, but more than trilogy. There are a ton of those movies, but we'll talk about Godzilla vs. Kong coming up after the break.
All right.
It's back for more. It's back with a vengeance. It's back with a new episode every other Friday at 8 p.m. on UTVS and streaming on Vimeo and YouTube.
Oh, what? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great.
It's back to the movies.
Hutchinson, man, has been dominating defense.
You were talking Sauce Gardner, now you throw Hutchinson out here on the
want
north
to
road.
sleep,
No!
he's a sleeper.
Ladies and gentlemen, get ready.
No.
The Suns are mentally weak. They're mentally fragile.
You don't know what you're talking about. You need to
It's crunch time.
Welcome back. All right, before we get to the main feature of this episode, I have this special book. This is a novelization of the original King Kong, published a few months before the original came out.
Interesting.
So basically, it's a adaptation of the original screenplay. So this is not an adaptation, like the movie is an adaptation of this. It's more the other way around. There are many movies adapted into books, and those are called novelizations. Like movies like Star Wars have novelizations as well. All right, but let's get to the chase. Let's get to the main feature. Godzilla X Kong. Like I said, Kong is the main focus in this movie. We show him more under the earth. We see him interacting with other giant apes, including a little, well, not little when it comes to human size, but little comes to like giant monster size. So basically, he's kind of like a little monkey that interacts with King Kong. He's basically his adopted son.
Interesting.
And like Planet of the Apes, there's like a society of apes underground, and there was like a bunch of like ginger apes, meaning they have like red fur.
Mm-hmm.
And like that Planet of the Apes movie you mentioned, there's like this giant dictator Kong.
Yes.
Basically, I call him Ginger Kong, and he basically rules over those red apes with like tiny little noodle arms, basically. Like,
yeah, he's more sort of orangutan.
Orangutan, yeah, orangutan. Well, it's kind of a fictional ape, anyways, but kind of like a orangutan, like you said.
I've seen the trailers. He uses this large like spine weapon that he uses to grapple buildings and
yes, that's the only way he can fight against Kong, because Kong is like a bigger muscle. He has more width, while the other Kong is basically scrawny, and basically he uses his henchmen to do all the fighting for him. Especially just like this Godzilla looking thing. It's not Godzilla, but it's like this 4 feet monster that can blow ice, that can broke like Kong's bones, like his arm. All right, let's just stop talking about the creatures. Let's talk about like the human characters. Now, when it comes to the human characters, like a lot of Godzilla and Kong movies, they're not that interesting, or at least they're not that good. Like there's like just a conspiracy theorist guy. He's like a podcaster. He has like a sponsorship. He acts like Kevin Hart, meaning that he's kind of like a coward. He always like crack jokes. And he's kind of like Carl Denham as well from the original King Kong, because he likes to shoot footage.
Okay.
Because in the movie, when he goes under the earth with the leading scientist people or military people, he has like a real camera, which is kind of weird because this is supposed to take place in modern day.
Well, yeah, I suppose there's like even in a society that's like their world is a bit more advanced than ours. They've got all this technology.
Okay.
I think that he has he'd have a bit of nostalgia for real film. Yeah.
I think it's a digital camera, but
okay.
But he's like carrying a camera around under the earth. Then he has there's other characters. So there's a guy. He's like Australian guy or British guy. He's very scrawny. He's kind of have long hair for what I remember. He has Hawaiian shirts. He likes rock music. He's basically the vet of King Kong.
Okay.
He's part of this organization that takes care of like giant monsters. It's called Monarch.
Yes.
And it basically uses him for military operations. So basically, the way I describe him, he's kind of like one of our hosts, Winston. So basically, I'm just gonna call him Winston because Winston is not British, but he has a British name. He's kind of scrawny, like the guy in the movie, and he's very talkative, like Winston. He likes rock music, like Winston. He's very caring, like Winston. He likes to hug people all the time. And then you got like the leading female character. I forgot her name. She's the boss of this monarch. She's like the head of King Kong division. She has an adopted daughter. She came from like a lost tribe of people under the ground that has Mothra as their god, basically, that they can control whenever there's problems. I won't describe it anymore because there's probably some spoilers left ahead.
Well, we'll let other people go out and see it.
Yes, indeed.
I'm certainly excited to.
Yes, you know what? Let's describe other movies. So, And speaking of Ghostbusters, I got another Dan Aykroyd movie I'll show you. The Gray Outdoors. Have you seen it before?
I actually have, yeah.
Because this is an old VHS copy. This is back when I was a kid. This is back in the old cabin. And in the old cabin, there was no internet access. So basically, the only thing that I can do is read books or watch movies, and most of the movies are on VHS. And I used to watch them in a portable TV with a 4x3 screen. It actually looks kind of good, a 4x3 screen, but not widescreen.
Yeah, I like The Great Outdoors. Like,
yes,
it
me too.
It has the same. I mean, of course, Steve Martin helps with that, but it has the same sort of feeling to me as Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yes,
yeah.
It's produced by the same guy, John Hughes.
Right.
This was made between another John Candy. I mean, John Candy's in this film. Uncle Buck and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles came out in 1988. Now, it's the type of movie that some people like and some people don't like. And the film, it did okay. It wasn't a big flop. But I really enjoyed it for nostalgia reasons because I used to watch it with my family almost every summer when I was a kid. And it's not a type of movie with a big plot, but it has a lot of good jokes, a lot of good gags.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut you off, but
Okay.
coming back after the break, we'll discuss this day in cinema history.
Okay.
Best crowd in college hockey, best atmosphere in college hockey. I mean, this is what it's all about.
Again, so far, St. Cloud getting an opportunity here. Cooper scores! Turnaround shot, Messi, they score!
To guarantee a spot, and we put ourselves in a good spot. There we go.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back. This is one of our favorite segments on the show. This day in cinema history. It's a good opportunity to learn. And yeah, excellent information here. 1968, important year in American history, but also important year in sci-fi history.
Yes.
Specifically on April 3rd, 1968, Planet of the Apes, the original with Charlton Heston, was released nationally. But not only that, I had to do a double take when I was doing research. 2001: A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick, was released in New York City.
Really? This is a lot of ape business going on this episode. A lot of ape business.
I appreciated when Rise of the Planet of the Apes. There are a lot of callbacks to the original with Charlton Heston.
Okay.
Kind of plays to that legacy. Moving forward, 14 years ago, this is actually a moment of television history that I remember quite fondly. In 2010, Matt Smith had his debut episode as the 11th Doctor on Doctor Who, which, interestingly enough, was also the first episode with Karen Gillan as his companion Amy Pond, who, moving forward 2 years later, or 3 years later, with Guardians of the Galaxy, has played Nebula in the MCU, and as both of them have had really excellent careers moving forward after Doctor Who. But it's a time in television that's I'm very fond of, and it's very close to my heart. But other than that, coming soon, June 4th, 2024, this year, Star Wars: The Acolyte is releasing.
Really?
We recently had a trailer just in the last week.
Really?
It's going to be the first live action adaptation of the High Republic setting.
Okay.
It takes place roughly 130 years before the prequel trilogy.
Okay.
So this is an era of the Star Wars universe that we haven't really seen on screen yet.
Yeah.
And it's going to sort of explore how the Jedi Order has sort of fallen from grace.
Yeah, I bet there's a lot of books about it. And speaking of Star Wars, let's go to Game of Thrones. It's gonna be House of Dragons season 2.
Yeah,
I bet it's gonna come sooner than the new novel by George R.R. Martin.
That's the joke. I've read all of the mainline Game of Thrones books.
Yeah, really?
I started when I was in my junior year of high school, and I was like, wow, by the time I finish reading these books, The Winds of Winter is going to be out.
No, it's not.
It was not. So we're still waiting on that, but fortunately, House of the Dragon has been really excellent. Coming off of a bit of a delay due to the actor strike, but I'm very excited for it. Which interestingly enough has Matt Smith as a central character. He plays Daemon Targaryen. Very different character portrayal than his the 11th Doctor. He played with a lot of whimsy, whereas Daemon Targaryen is kind of a monster.
Okay.
Like that entire family, the Targaryens, has a history of being very problematic. But yeah, I'm looking forward to both of those shows, and I think it's really interesting because when House of the Dragon season 1 came out, that was also when Andor was being released. So I'm looking forward to early June.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward that much. I mean, the only movie I saw this year in the theater is that Godzilla Kong movie. Like, a lot of movies I'm not interested in. I watch movies at least prior mostly. Not because I'm like a hipster or anything. I mean, I kind of am because I have the beard and stuff like that. But I'm just not interested in movies that come out right now.
Well, thank you for joining us on Back to the Movies.
Me too.
We'll see you next time.
Yes. Yakky yak, don't come back.
Adding your own flavor to fashion comes with age.
Okay, Dad, look at you.
Yeah, welcome. Hi.
Forgetting how to add doesn't. Finding it difficult to work with numbers may be a sign of Alzheimer's.
Dad, are you okay?
An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's. Some things come with age, some others don't.